V'ato titzaves b'nei Yisrael, and you should command the b'nei Yisrael v'ikhoy lecho shemen zayzoch kosis lamor. You should take for yourself olive oil, which is pure, kosis lamor. It's crushed for illumination, lalos ner tomid, to provide for a continuous candle, continuous light. What does it mean, lahalos? So we'll see Rashi in a moment. What's lahalos? So Rashi cites Chazal. Lahalos means that when you light the menorah, you take the fire and you keep it at the wick and you keep it there until the flame goes up by itself. It's not you just put it to the wick and now it catches on, then it goes up. You have to keep the fire associated with the wick till the flame goes up. That's lahalos. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Rashi, atot titzaver, zach. What is zach? Pure, b'li shemorim. That there's no sediment. They just roll. It's a very heavily saturated olive with a lot of oil. And when you roll it at the tip of the olive, you only extract the first droplet of oil out of the olive. That's the only droplet which qualifies for the menorah. It's crushed. It's the first droplet which is extracted from the olive. Kosis. Kosis machteshes. The olives, they would crush with a machteshes, with a mortar and pestle. The way normally olive oil is made, they actually grind the olives in a grinder, like in a mill. Because if you grind in a grinder, that means the oil with the pieces of the olive are all intermingled. After you extract the first droplet, they take the olive that remains, they put it into this mill or this grinder, and they grind it. The second olive oil, which is siphoned off, which is distilled from the sediment, qualifies for the menachos, because the meal offerings also had oil, but it does not qualify for the menorah. Only if it's crushed, it's extracted for illumination, but not if it's extracted for menachos. They would filter it out. If they would grind it, so how do you have the pure olive oil afterwards? It has to be siphoned. It has to be filtered. You put it through a filter. The filter holds back the pieces of the olive, and the oil comes through. But the oil for the menorah has to be the first droplet. That in this, it never had anything intermingled with that oil. It was directly extracted from the olive as oil. That's what it is.
Why is that?
Well, see, why is that? Okay, talk. Why? Many illusions. I'd mentioned that the Vikuli Truma, last week we read, take for me a tithing. You have all this wealth. We spoke about that the Mishkan was built from the Bizas Hayam, from the swirls of the sea. You should tithe from that, a tithing for me. It's not you tithe it and then give it to me. And it's Lishmo, you give it to me after you tithe it. But rather the tithing has to be for me. From the very inception of that Truma, of that tithing, everything from get-go, from day one, has to be for me. It's not you take Truma and now you give that Truma to me. I'll give you an example. A person takes Meiser, hides his earnings 10%, and now I decide I'll take this, use it for a mitzvah. No, when you tithe it for the mitzvah specifically. So the inception of the Meiser is for the mitzvah. Here, the tithing of the wealth, the materials that were needed for the Mishkan, when it becomes the Truma, it's becoming Truma specifically for the sake of Hashem. That's the lead from the very inception. Identically, the oil. So before you make it in Truma doesn't exist. The Truma comes about due to your tithing. Here, if you crush the olive and grind it, you have oil and the pieces of the olive intermingled. The oil pre-exists the filtering of the oil. Here, from the very inception of becoming oil, that oil is what is specifically for the menorah. Lemor. If you grind something, what is that? Now you go and you siphon it off, you have oil. But the oil pre-existed the siphoning off, except it was intermingled with pieces of oil. But when you take the olive and you extract that droplet of oil didn't pre-exist until you extracted it from the olive. So everything is from the very inception. From the very inception, it's being used that's the purest of pure. It's being used, it didn't pre-exist this moment. What's the first moment of oil? The moment is extracted. I'll give you a halacha. This is halacha mefarik. Mefarik is one of the lamites malachas. If you take a grape or an olive and you squeeze it and you extract the oil or the juice of an olive or a grape, what are you in violation of? Mefarik. What's mefarik? You're extracting liquid from solid. It's not the liquid pre-existed the solid. When the juice is in the grape and the olive oil is in the olive, it's not called olive with oil. Until you extract it, it's what? The liquid doesn't exist. The liquid only comes into existence when you extract the liquid from the solid. It's an extraction. Before it was a solid. It's mashke min ha'ochel. Mashke min ha'ochel. When you have a mixture of ground up oil with olive pieces, that's not mashke min ha'ochel. That's called borer. It's a different malacha. Borer is a malacha. Things are intermingled. You separate one from the other. The essential from non-essential. Mefarik is not a separating essential from non-essential. Mefarik is extracting one thing from another. You're extracting liquid from solid. Mashke from ochel. So the first, if you grind it, that would be borer. The oil that's intermingled with the olive pieces, you're siphoning off, you're filtering. When you extract that first droplet, you're creating that droplet which did not pre-exist this moment. So the moment the oil becomes oil, it's becoming oil for the sake of illumination. That's how unique it is. It's specifically from the moment it comes to existence is for that. The moment it becomes truma, you tithe it, it's for the Mishkan. Yichuli truma. From the very inception. That's the concept. That's why it's because it's lamor. That's on a simple level. Okay? But what's the Yikuli? It says, first, you have to give the commandment. This is the first time. By all the other various parts of the Mishkan, this is Atot Tetzaveh. It says, Savis Melishal. Atot Tetzaveh, the emphasis, you must command them. And what's the Yikwei Lecho? They should take for you. The Yikru, Shem Zayzoch, they should take Shem Zayzoch. And for the Mishkan, like anything else was used for the Mishkan. Seems to me there's some personalization. V'yiku eilecho. When they take it, it should be taken for you. The droplet that's extracted is extracted for you. For the sake of illumination. Firstly, the mitzvah of Hadlok Menorah was Aaron. It wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Aaron, that was his mitzvah. And that was given to him because all the Nisim had participated in the inauguration of the Mishkan, and Aaron himself was what? Did not participate, Shevet Levi, and he was taken aback. And Hashem says, Shilcho Gedol Shemalehem, your involvement is greater than theirs. That Lok Menorah. That's what Hashem says. So this is Aaron's mitzvah. But yet it says, V'yikwei lecho. They should take the oil for you. For the sake of illumination. Okay? We had earlier, in last week's parsha, by the menorah, it says, V'te'os es menorah. It doesn't say V'ta'aseh. The menorah shall be made. It doesn't say you should make. So Rashi, last week's parsha, cites the Midrash that Moshe had difficulty with the menorah. Nobody was able to make the menorah. So Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, take the block of gold, put it into the kiln, and the menorah came out by itself. So who made the menorah? HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the menorah. What did Moshe do? Moshe only did the act of putting the gold in the fire. The menorah came out by itself. So I asked the question, if the menorah itself came about through a miracle, what did Moshe even have to put the gold in the fire? The whole menorah is miraculous. Hashem could have had the menorah come out of the fire. Like the water came out of the rock. When Moshe struck the rock, would have spoken to the rock. There's no water in the rock. It's a miracle. So the menorah came out of the fire. What did Moshe even have to put the gold in the fire? The whole thing's a miracle. Seems we needed Moshe's initiative. Now, we had spoken that what does the menorah represent? Menorah represents Torah Sheba'al Peh. Right, that's what it represents. The illumination of the menorah is the illumination of the Torah. That's Torah Or. We have the Luchos and the Shivrei Luchos, and the Torah, where is it that located in the Mishkan? That's in the Oron, which is in the Kodesh Kadoshim, in the Holy of Holies. The menorah was on the other side of the Parochas, in the Hechel, the covered sanctuary. The lighting of the menorah activated the Siyata D'Shmaya, that the understanding of the Torah becomes available to the Klal Yisrael. That's what the lighting of the menorah is. That's the Ma'or. That's the illumination. Now, who is considered the conduit for Torah? Who transmits the Torah to Klal Yisrael? Who elucidates it to the nth degree? Moshe Rabbeinu. We had in Parshas Mishpatim, Tosim Lefneim. Remember? Ela Mishpatim Asher Tosim Lefneim. K'shulchan Aruch. So Hashem says to Moshe, don't teach it them once, twice, or three times, but you should elucidate it to its fullest, like a table which is ready for consumption. All the food is fully prepared, so you should explain it at a level of clarity which it's immediately could be absorbed. They fully could understand it. That's more. That's illumination. The Torah Sheba'al Peh, to understand it with that level of clarity, that only came about through the lighting of the menorah. So who's the conduit? Who's the master over Torah? Torah Tzivin Lo Moshe. So Moshe is unique to the Torah itself. Our relevance to the Torah is only through Moshe Rabbeinu. So if the extraction of that oil, which is it's the purest, Torah is what? Emes Keneg. Torah itself is truth on the unadulterated level. We mentioned. Emes Keneg al Timkor, Shlomo says in Mishlei. Acquire truth, don't sell it. If the Torah itself, even an infinitesimal part of it, is lacking, the Aleph, if you take the Aleph from Emes, the Maral says, what do you have left? Mem Tov, Mes. It has the truth on the absolute level. It's Kosis Lamor, the first droplet. It's the purest of the pure. That's what the Torah is. That's the illumination of the menorah. That represents that level of what? Of clarity. That has only relevance to Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, why Moshe Rabbeinu? Why was he the only one qualified to receive the Torah? Why was he the transmitter? Why was he the conduit? Shechina medaberes b'toch shgrono. The Shechina spoke through his throat. Now, every one of us, the greatest of the prophets, had some sense, some aspect of self. Moshe Rabbeinu was Onav Mikol Adam, Nachnu Mo. When Moshe Rabbeinu processed the Torah, when he received the Torah, there wasn't a trace of himself in it. Whatever he received, he transmitted. Only Moshe Rabbeinu was qualified to be the conduit to transmit the word of Hashem from him through a human being, that it should be at that purest form, which is emes on the absolute level. Because anybody else has a trace of self. There's your so-called, your spin on it. It's your something of yourself, lends itself and reflects itself in the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu, there's no lending himself, because there was no self by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu's level of humility is Onav Mikol Adam. And because he was that level of negation, the Torah which he received from Hashem was exactly unadulterated truth as Hashem had given to him. If I tell somebody a Dvar Torah and he wants to say it over, everybody says it, even though you say it over almost like verbatim, but something about yourself lends itself to the way you communicate it. When you give it over, because you're the one who's the communicator, whether it's your personality, whether it's your intellect, whether it's your embellishment, you're not in any way affecting the fact that's being transmitted. But there's something about yourself which has to do with the transmission of that. Whether it's an embellishment, a positive embellishment. Moshe Rabbeinu, there was no such thing. Because very often when we that's us. It's the I, it's the me. Moshe Rabbeinu, there was no I, there was no me. It was emes as Hashem had given it over. And that's what it means. Shechina medaber b'toch the Shechina spoke through his throat. Therefore, it's yichu eilecho shemen zayzoch. The oil that's extracted, the purest of the pure, that first droplet, when it comes into being, it's specifically lamor, and it's for you. Just as that's the purest of the pure, when it's given to you, you're the purest of the pure, so you communicate that, and that's what has relevance to you. That's a lecho. Because only you have that level of purity to be able to transmit the Torah at the purest level. It says, the Gemara says in two locations, I've created an evil inclination, and Barosi Torah Tablim. The only antidote to the evil inclination is the Torah itself, nothing else. So the Rechaim HaKodesh writes that Torah, which is the Tavdim, which is the antidote, is only Torah Lishma. Otherwise, we all study Torah. Why are we subject to temptation, or why do we have struggles? The moment you study the Torah, you should have a level of clarity that there's no challenge. If I see a fire burning, and I see Gan Eden, and I say you have a choice, either put your hand in the fire and have your hand burnt, or put your hand in the other side and your hand will be enhanced. And it's clear, beyond any doubt, you put your hand in the fire. If Torah is the Tavlin, and Torah is Or, and gives you a level of clarity, immediately the Eitzar makes a presentation to you. You see right away, this is dread, the most extreme level of dread. So why we have a challenge? The moment we study Torah, you hook in, you have illumination. So the Rechaim HaKodesh says, because it's only Torah L'Shma. If you study Torah L'Shma, that's the antidote. That brings you to that level of clarity. But since when we study Torah, we have our own intention. Now, what's the rationale? A person studies Torah selflessly, literally selflessly. It has nothing to do with the person at all. It's purely for the sake of Hashem. So the me and I, where does the Yetzer Hara have relevance to? It's always to the physicality of the person. The physicality of the person is the me and the I. If the neshama would not be part of the body, a person would not have challenges, because the soul is purely spiritual. It's only because of the earthiness of the body, so that's the I. The body has inclinations. We're inclined for ourselves. That's the ego. So it's a challenge. Is it I or is it him? And even what we do for him, there's the I in the him. So when there's the eyes in the him, that minimizes the value of the him. That's the shlo lishma. That's the shlo lishma. So the moment you allow that shlo lishma to touch it, or even to be tinged by it, that minimizes the value of the Torah. Because automatically, if it's pure Torah, that's pure light. That's the neshama. But the fact is, since there's the I always attached to that Torah, as a result of that, you're giving that physical profile or limitation to Torah itself. Therefore, the Rechaim HaKodesh says the only time the Torah is the ultimate antidote It's only totally Lishma, and there are various levels of Lishma, right? I mentioned name and Mesilsa Sharim. The person studies Torah because he wants to have a share in the world to come. What is that? He says, definitely that's Lishma. But he says it's not the ultimate level Lishma. Why? Because when you do it for the sake of sharing the world to come, there's you. You're doing it for yourself. Even though that's what Hashem wants you to do. But what is the impetus? What's the driving force? It's you want that share. But if a person does a mitzvah, he refers to it because of Yiras Aromus, because I feel privileged to be able to serve the creator, the maker. That's not me. It's purely, I don't need reward. That I have the opportunity to serve Hashem, that's the greatest honor there is. It's him, because you have such a recognition of who he is. That's the ultimate level of Lishma. That's the Mesilsa Sharim, the Ramchal, what he writes. Sharing the world to come is Lishma. You're doing it for the right reason, but there's still part of you in there. When you do it where it's unrelated to you, it's purely for the sake of Hashem, and the reward is, I'm honored that I have the privilege to be able to do that. That's the ultimate level of Shema. I'm saying, so every one of us, even though we believe it's that at that special level, only, as they say, only God knows. Hashem attested the fact, who is Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is honored Mikol Adam. Asher al Pnei Adama. There's nobody who's ever as humble as Moshe. He's nachnumah. There's not a trace of himself. Hashem made that evaluation. Therefore, as a result, when we speak about Torah being emes, Moshe emes v'Torah emes, right? Moshe's emes and his Torah's emes. Emes is on the absolute level. It's you, because you are the one who owns the Torah, because only you're the conduit. You're the one who presented it. The Klal Yisrael, because only you as a human being could present it in the context that Hashem is communicating, which is on the absolute level of truth. What we do with it afterwards, that's a different story. I'll give you an example. I give a person ingredients, the purest of pure ingredients. And now it goes into that kitchen. If that kitchen is not sterile at the most, like a operating room, immediately that ingredient is at some level not as pure any longer, because the environment is not the purest environment. And what about if the cook doesn't somehow mix the ingredients right? He has his own take on it because he likes to add something a little extra, or the percentages of ingredients are not as exactly as prescribed. It's not exactly as it was prescribed. It's your thing. This tastes like Jay's bread. You know, Jay's bread. It's the ingredient. See, it is, but still, everybody has his input. Moshe Rabbeinu, when it comes to Torah, Mark tells us in Megillah, we're holding not far from Purim. When it comes to the study of Torah, Yogato Motzos Tamin, that if you toil in Torah and you've come upon its truth due to the toil, you have a right to believe that person. That the way he came upon the truth was only because he toiled. If the person says, Lo Yogati Motzosi, I did not toil and I came upon its truth, Al Tamin, don't believe that person. Why? Because although it seems to be the truth, it's not the truth. You may believe it's the truth, but it's not the truth. What about a person who says, Yogati V'lo Motzosi, I've toiled and I did not come upon its truth? Don't believe that person. Why? He may believe that he toiled sufficiently, but the reason why he didn't come upon the truth because he did not toil sufficiently. Because if you toil sufficiently, you would come upon the truth. So there's a prerequisite to come upon the truth of Torah. You need yigiyah. You need that degree of toil. Without its toil, you do not come upon its truth. Now, we spoke in the past. I used to mention it, even the name of the Vilna Gaon or Chaim Voloshin. It doesn't say Yogato Hevanto. You've toiled and you understand due to your toil. It's as motzosa. You've toiled and you came upon it. You found it. When a person goes and finds a treasure, right? You just have to uncover the various layers of what it's covered with, and you come upon the treasure. The truth of Torah is what? Is a gift. It's a gift of Hashem. Except you have to be worthy that you should be the beneficiary of that gift. What creates that worthiness? To what degree do you toil? If you toil, you're worthy of that truth. If you don't toil, you don't. What does toil show? Toiling shows it has the ultimate level of value. It's worthwhile to sacrifice and toil for it. That's why that's the prerequisite. But how do you come upon emes? Emes is what the Torah is Hashem. We have no relevance to understand the unlimited. Our only relevance to understand the unlimited is if you're willing to want to negate the physical. The more you negate the physical, because you understand, you value the spiritual, that makes you eligible for that spiritual, which is the ultimate, which is the truth. Because the only thing which is truth on the absolute is only the Torah itself. Other things have relevance to truth, but absolute truth is only the Torah. We're not, because we're a composite of physical and spiritual. So how do we come to that level to have relevance to something on the absolute? That's a gift. But you have to be worthy, qualified for that gift. That's your Gata Motzasa. If Moshe Rabbeinu, as great as he was, that he should have relevance to that absolute, he has to have a full negation. He has to do whatever he can within the physical. We find Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael in Dvarim, in Veschanon, that he says, when I was in heaven, 40 days and 40 nights, lechem lo achalti mayim lo shosisi. I did not eat bread, I did not drink water. That's what he tells Klal Yisrael. Why is that important for us to know? He's sharing this with us. When he was in Shamayim, he did not eat bread, did not drink water. He only studied Torah from God. He was totally detached from his physicality. So the Medrash says, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Klal Yisrael, Kishem shemosarti domi v'chel dioleo. As I gave my fat and my blood for the sake of Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu physically was affected. He did by not eating. He sacrificed his flesh, his fat, and his blood for the sake of Torah. And that's why I was qualified to receive the truth. If you go and you sacrifice for the sake of Torah, you'll also merit the truth of Torah. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu is sharing those facts with us. It's that same idea. It's the negation of the physicality. That's the sacrifice. The physical actually is the blockage. It's the me, it's the I. We have needs. The moment a need means it's me. If you're willing to forego you, then you have relevance to him. That qualifies you for the truth. We find when Moshe Rabbeinu, in the beginning of Dvarim, begins, it's the last 36 days of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, he's rebuking and admonishing the Jews for what happened over 40 years. So one of the rebukes that he says to Klal Yisrael is an important point. He says, when Yisro originally gave the suggestion to institute the court system, the various echelons of judges, the Jews felt it was a great idea. Okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu says, you're eager, you jumped at it. So Moshe Rabbeinu is giving a Musar. Who is it better to learn from? The teacher or the student? The judge is the student because I taught them Torah. Or me. Why for me? Because I sacrificed to the Torah. Because I sacrificed to the Torah. When I sacrificed. Therefore, it's better to learn from me than learn from my student because they didn't sacrifice the way I sacrificed. Why did he say better? I learned it from PLU, from P. Hashem. I learned it from the mouth, from the source. They didn't learn it from the source. That's what he should have said. That should have been the rebuke. Because he says to them, you learned it from my students, and them you could somehow mislead. Me, you can't mislead. Because me, I sacrifice for the Torah. You can't mislead me because I have Torah at that clearer level because I learned it from Hashem directly. B'pi Hashem. So what do you see over there? No. He says the reason why he had that level of clarity, why was he worthy? Because Masarti Domi V'chel Dioleo. I only came upon this truth because I negated my physicality. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu was Nachnu Mo, he was negated as a person, but even that, but he still had physical needs. He had to eat, he had to drink. Even that he was willing to give up. Even that aspect of his physicality, which is impossible to live without eating or drinking. And the Gemara in Shabbos asks, had Moshe Rabbeinu survived 40 days and 40 nights without eating or drinking? A human being has to eat or drink. So the Gemara says, because when you're in the realm of angels, in a location where nobody eats or drinks, in that realm, you're able to survive. As the angel survives without eating and drinking, Moshe Rabbeinu took on the status of an angel during this period of time. But that was his choice, because it was due to his choice. Therefore, that was part of his negation. As a result of that, he merited that ultimate level of truth. Moshe Rabbeinu. A face is called panim. Why is a face called panim? We said this in the past. Because without the vowels, it can be read pinim. Pinim means the inside of you. That a person's face reflects everything about the person. His potential, his accomplishments, his failings. That's the panim. The panim reveals the pinim. Therefore, there's such a thing known as chochmas hapartzuf. People who read faces on Kabbalistic levels, you could actually see everything about the person. His past, his future, his potential, everything's there. Okay? We say in the Brocha, in Sim Shalom, when we conclude the Shmon Esrei, Ki bor panech nosat lanu Hashem Elokeinu Toras chaim b'avas chesed. At Sinai, Hashem showed us Ki bor panecha, the illumination of your face, Kavayocho. You gave us Toras chaim b'avas chesed. What's the point? Hashem is what? Hashem is infinite. Whatever we experience there, I mean, you can't. You can't. If something is it's unending. It's infinite. How would you see it? The answer: you don't see it. Like when I see your face, do I know everything that's going on within you? But what I see represents everything. It's like when you see the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg represents the iceberg, because under the water is the rest of the iceberg. L'havdil. So I'm saying when I see a person's face, what I see represents everything. When Hashem showed us at Sinai, that was a representation of the infinite. Do we have realms to the infinite? The answer is no. The illumination of your face, you showed us, you gave us Torah Chaim Avos Chesed. But what's the Or Panech of Hashem? The light of, what's his countenance? The countenance is the Panim. But we only saw at the most superficial level. But we saw at the most superficial level is a representation of that infinite. We find there's a mitzvah aliyah regular 3 times a year to go to the Temple Mount. What's the mitzvah? Liros es penei ha'odon Hashem. To see the countenance of the Master Hashem. A Jew has to see the countenance of Hashem 3 times a year. That's aliyah regular. Why? Because when you're exposed to that 3 times a year, you touch differently. You become a different being. You should go to the location where the Shekhinah is. What's Liros Penei Odon Hashem? What do you mean you're seeing his countenance? When you go there, you sing his countenance. Do you understand what you're seeing? The answer is no, you don't understand what you're seeing. But what you're seeing is a representation of the infinite. When you study Torah and you come upon its truth, what are you touched by? You're touched by something which is truth on the absolute level. How do you come upon the absolute? The absolute is only Hashem. You know what the answer is? That's a gift. Hashem allows you to be touched by that. That's we're touched by the illumination of his face. The panim is the outer part, but that is a representation of everything which is on the absolute level.